All right, we're good.
All right, welcome to Hoop Therapy. Come on, sit down on the couch, lay back, and let us tell you what you need to hear. I am your co-host Kayshawn, aka the Tar Heel, aka the Don, aka whatever you want to call me. That's who I am. And my other co-host right here.
It's Daniel. It's Daniel Sparrow. D Chaps for y'all who know me by that. Yeah, man.
Let's get it. I mean, the
I
NBA
see
is
you're.
back.
But before we even get to the NBA, I see you're fresh off this Rose versus calling yourself the Don and shit.
Hey man, the Rose 2 Chainz versus that was I don't it wasn't I mean the DMX joint was probably my favorite because I'm a big DMX head, but this
Hmm
one was a nice just like chill pace. I had the wine sipping. I was just relaxing, listening. I mean it was fun. They brought out the essential workers. Shout outs to them.
Yeah,
It,
right, right,
it,
right.
it was a great time. Did you enjoy that?
Man, I didn't even get to catch it. I was kind of busy, kind of catching up with a couple things here. You know, I'm a big Rose guy, so I think tomorrow I'm gonna have to catch it at work. Grinding, so I'm gonna have to catch it at that point.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's exquisite. How you call it? That's high class bars on both sides there. I
It
could just tell it
was.
was just a smooth time. I don't even think that it was mainly for the competition. I think it was just two of
Oh,
the same tier banging out.
see, you could tell Rose came to compete. Rose had joints in the tuck. He was like, "Yeah, I'm coming to knock you out." 2 Chainz
Yeah,
already knew he couldn't really battle with him, so he's like, "I'm just about to do what I can do. We about to just celebrate." So it was a nice little contrast, and then they ended up just enjoying each other. I think it was fun. I think that versus has come a long way from when it first started to some
yeah.
hostility with like how Sean Garrett was, just making people uncomfortable to now where it's like everybody's just doing it, having a good time.
Vibe.
The
It's like
drinks
some
are
karaoke
flowing.
night type shit.
Exactly. Drinks are flowing, there's things in the air. It was a good time.
I think that's one of the bright spots of COVID. That amounting the way it has been super cool, man. There's been just so many fire matchups, so many fire just like vibes. Like the DMX vibe was nice.
hmm It was nice to see how everybody can come together. Just like how
Right, right, right.
everyone has come together in this NBA bubble. The,
Yes,
the NBA
sir.
is back.
Ball
What
is back for sure.
we're about what a week deep in it now.
Well, yeah, it's officially a weekend of games. Yep.
Yeah. How you feel about it?
I mean, all right. In context of the bubble, I think it's exactly what we're all supposed to be doing. Like just being behind closed doors. You know, staying with the people that who you're seeing day to day at work. It's such and such that you have to run into. But other than that, really limiting interactions with other people, keeping your social distance, wearing your mask at all times, and just staying as safe as possible for the better of the community and better for yourself. So the fact that it's been, four tests now in of
hmm
zero cases. I mean, obviously everybody's been enclosed in the bubble, but still, it's such a good sign to see a lot of people maintain like that. And I think, as an entertainment business and as sports and as a consumer, that I enjoy them being back and I enjoy it back. And to be honest, the level of play right now and the quality of basketball that's going on right now is exceeding my expectation. I thought I would really had stipulations with how the audio runs and how just like the general broadcast, especially like after the first scrimmage where it was just kind of all over the place. But a weekend and I'm just viewing this as almost as if it is back in, end of March, beginning of April, and it's about to be playoff basketball. Like I'm excited, I'm enjoying it. These games have been great, and yeah, man, I'm loving it. And
And see the difference is this is like the end of March and April run, but then again, it's not. You kick all the bad
yeah,
teams out, and you see how good the basketball can be. I mean, we're not sitting here watching Andre Drummond shoot 3 pointers and no, no knock to him. It's like I'd rather watch some better guys.
there's no more seeing Trey Young make somebody being down by 50.
Right, right. We can
What
just keep
about
that to
you?
yourself.
What are you
Um,
thinking about this whole bubble life?
I love it, and that's you said the zero test, and that's with even Rashawn Holmes. He was the first one that got caught. Well, he stepped off for some DoorDash or Postmates or something like that, and had to do that 10-day quarantine. And then you had Lou Williams and strip club heard around the world. Just want some wings. So I mean, even with those things, they were able to put people to sit them down, quarantine, and able to keep everything safe. I mean, the NBA is taking this seriously. Everyone there is taking it seriously. You know, I'm happy to have basketball back, and
I think that's one thing that's like the NBA is taking it serious. Like the whole quarantining for 10 days at least for just breaking the rules of not being in the areas you're supposed to be in, being in crowded areas, being in uncharted areas, being with people that aren't wearing masks, and if it's documented stuff, like it's no games, and it's for a reason because it's for the safety of everybody there. Like, you look at the MLB and it's like not having a bubble is causing so much issue, and I know a lot of people made ruckus about how it was like Lou Will grabbing to the strip club and like it was beyond the consequence that it needed to be, and is it because of where he went? But at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure if you pull up to just like Wendy's and there's more than 5 people hovering around you asking for a picture and you go ahead and do it, the NBA is slapping you with a 10-day quarantine because there's no games with it right now.
right.
So I think everybody should understand there's no games with this pandemic passing around still.
Right, it's literally $1 billion at stake. Nobody has time for games. Like this is we hit a hoop and that's it. I mean, the arena looks nice, the whole setup. I saw Devin Booker said today, it's like a shooter's paradise. The depth perception is nice. You don't have like the court and then like thousands of fans behind you where you have to look at it. It's like, nah, it's just the court and that's it. So, a lot of shooters are getting locked in.
I didn't see that quote, but that now I'm looking up at this Rockets game right now and just thinking about it like that way. That like the depth perception is way different. There's nothing else to factor in, just the hoop and the court.
Right.
Or the boards. You about to sit in as a virtual fan?
I think I'm gonna try to get in one game. I'm gonna definitely. But that would require me to watch a full Wizards game, and I cannot tell you the last time I have done that.
Yeah, no, don't do that for your well-being and mental health.
I mean, this isn't good to say. I'm a big fan. I love the Wizards, but they ain't got nobody out there. So I usually spend my time watching the better teams play.
So, what's your take on the play? How you liking the quality of basketball that's been going on so far?
It's been pretty good. I enjoy it. You see some teams came out the gates just, sprinting. You got Phoenix. Houston started off pretty strong. They kind of petered out for a second, but they looks like they're on to another win tonight. The Clippers, as a favorite, they haven't really played that well, but they've got some pivotal wins. What are they, 3-1 now? So you can't really take much from them. But I think Phoenix has to be the star of the restart right now. Phoenix in Indiana before they lost.
They're pitted against each other.
Devin Booker, who has been playing phenomenal. I usually get on him for his lack of passing. I mean, when I see him play, most of the time it's him taking shots. He doesn't. I like to see scorers like him who, you can obviously score anytime down the court, but you got other players on the team. I like for them to give the ball up early. I mean, the ball will find you. So, give the ball up, move, cut, do what you got to do, find you a better position. Because once you got the defense on the move, it's easy for you to get your shot up. So, but he's been passing a lot more. My guy Cam Johnson's down there, got 2 double-doubles in the bubble. Say that 5 times fast.
Right.
At his first 2. So, I mean, I like what Phoenix is doing. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. They probably won't. They got a lot of teams to jump, but they've played well, exceeded expectations. And, the team that's ahead of them, well, the Portland Trailblazers, I think that other than the Suns, that's the only other team that I look at and I say, wow. It's like they really came to play. Like they in the Western Conference, that is, because I don't want the Raptors fans jumping at me. The Raptors have been good too. All right, let's get that out there. I don't really like watching them, but that's another story.
I mean, like, out of those, what is it, bottom 5, right? It's what? Memphis, Portland, Phoenix, San Antonio, Sacramento, and New Orleans. So the 6 of them. Out of the 6 of them, I mean, those 2 teams that you just listed, Portland and Phoenix, came out the gate gunning. There's a weird story going on with Denver and what their young guys are doing. Like you said, Toronto's killing it. I think the favorites come in were a consensus of Milwaukee, LA, and the Clippers. And I know we had this conversation the other day where the Lakers just looked a little weird. Obviously, they locked in their top spot and they're geared towards the playoffs, but still, sloppy first game, sloppy kind of play overall. Not really like too concerning, but also wasn't too reassuring that they're looking like clear dominant. Like the Clippers have been playing a little bit sloppy ball as well. They came together, string some wins, but you want to see some dominance. Like the Bucks almost lost an ugly one today, playing Miami. Was it 3 games in 4 days and still dropping about like 25 at the half? Like just looking a little sketch. And then you have some good stories like Indiana, like you're saying, Miami winning a couple games. Obviously, Boston just looking a little different. So, but focusing in on that race for the 8th, like we were talking about. So the new thing with this bubble is if you're at least, 4 games within the 8th seed? Well, if you're within 4 games of the 8th seed, you ignite playing game to kind of get that 8th seed. And basically, you play each other, and then you try to beat that 8th seed twice to take over that spot. So the order is right how I listed it was Memphis, Portland, Phoenix.
It's Memphis, Portland, San Antonio, Sacramento, Phoenix.
No, but then Phoenix jumped the gun with today's win.
With the win, yes, you're right.
Yeah, they're right behind Portland. So it's Portland, then Portland, Phoenix, San Antonio, Sacramento, and then New Orleans dropped down there. So, like we're listing all these teams, but we can't forget that Memphis had a phenomenal year. Ja kind of proved himself to be definitely a star in this league, and they just got hit with that injury bug, and Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. falling down kind of hurts their chances of being playoffs overall. Even without the playoffs, they still get kudos for having a phenomenal year. And like we said, Portland's looking great because they got blessed with actually being healthy again. So that's one to look at.
Memphis, that trade they also made, they had to get Iguodala off the team, clearly. But giving up Jay Crowder and Solomon Hill, who were actually playing well for the Grizzlies, that kind of hurt them in the short term. They did get back Justice Winslow, but he got hurt again. So that's your risk when you take Justice Winslow. He's probably played about 35% of his games in the NBA because of injury. The guy's talented, but reoccurring injuries, it's like how much stock can you put in that? I almost would have wanted to keep Jay Crowder, but I get the long-term play. But it's like
it's a long-term play, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you might have risked some short-term success. It's no guarantee that Memphis would be in this position anytime soon again. Because if you look at the race below them, and you see the teams ahead of them, the 7 teams ahead of them are probably. Those are like solid playoff teams. The Thunder might fall out depending on what happens with Chris Paul or whatever. But you look at those, and then you look at the teams behind them. It's like Memphis. You had a surprise season, but and you gave up postseason success, but you might not even make it now. And it's like, where do you slot in years to come? You made this trade for long term, implications. You looking at the long term, it's like still a little sketchy. Because New Orleans, who hasn't played well so far, they still. The year's coming. I would take them over Memphis. Portland, you still have. Those are 2 right there who I would just take. Phoenix looks like they might have something budding, but the Kings are the Kings, and I don't know what the Spurs are going to do with. But just that little trade could change so many things, short term and long term.
Well, like you're saying, like you can talk yourself in or out of them beating any of those lower teams below them, and at the end of the day, like the way I look at it, you always want to turn nothing into something. And the problem is, like, just to jump into the actual trade, like with Justice Winslow, is like he's been kind of poised to be like that starter position or being like a key player for a team, but having that kind of lower rotation role and just having more time to rehab, he's got talent. Like he's a good player. So it doesn't really hurt them. And like you're saying, like those teams below them, they can kind of convince themselves where they might not be in the same neck of the woods. Like you look at the 2 teams you talked about that have promising young cores, where it's New Orleans and Phoenix. New Orleans didn't have Zion for the bulk of the season, and we know that that could definitely make the difference. And it's their first year with that whole team, and they had stretches where they actually played really good ball. And actually, before the end of the season, they were playing really good ball. So
Right.
right now, like they've been just getting smacked up, and it's just limited Zion minutes, so not enough for him to be out there dominating. And who knows how Gentry's really playing the game with them right now. But then the other young team is Phoenix, and they have two studs, one star, which I could say Devin Booker is a star in this league because given his age and his production, and then you have a good young stud in Ayton, and then you build a young core around them that has some promise. Oubre's not bad, Cam Johnson's not bad, Mikal Bridges is showing out, and then they actually have a point guard in Ricky Rubio, you know. So I mean, they've got something promising there. And then on the flip side, then you have Portland, which honestly is that 8 seed lock. You have a superstar in Dame, and then you have a nice core around him that just happened to be hurt. They don't even have Rodney Hood right now, and they're still winning games. You know, Nurk
Exactly.
plays a huge role in what that team is, and the Melo signing now that he's kind of lower in the importance is key, is vital. So I mean,
Right.
they really have to look at whether or not is Jay Crowder the man that's putting them over these rotations. I don't really think so. Solomon Hill had a good year for them, but is that sustainable for another run like that? I think they realize that it's all on their young talent. It's mostly on Ja, and they kind of they're running with that. So I understand that. So what's
Yeah.
your take on the Suns? How the Suns look at you? We jumped into talking about D Book a bunch and where they're at. They're closing in on Portland for right there, basically a 2 games back.
Yeah. I will say the campaign reclamation project is a good through 4 games. Many people might know him as Russell Westbrook's dance partner back in OKC, but he was the original. He was what the first point guard out of Murray State taking the first round. Yeah, because Isaiah Cannon didn't get drafted in the first round or second, I don't believe. But he has some promising things in his future, and he has some bumps and bruises. But he's come on, played strong for Phoenix in the backup point guard role since they truly don't have one
Yeah,
other than some
and I think
rookies.
like it's definitely been some room for some hoopers who just kind of have that either mental side to them that's been holding them back or just haven't had the same spotlight on them to kind of go off as they are. You know, T.J. Warren, like we were talking about, bowl through the whole beginning scrimmages. You got Michael Porter Jr. over there
Ooh,
hooping
they,
off. Like you got some
mm-hmm.
coming out of nowhere, kind of just showing a different role right now, and it could be just the environment they're in. You know.
Yeah, it's a hooper's paradise because there's nothing you have to worry about but hoop.
Exactly.
So it's not the usual politics of the NBA where you got the trappings of this and that, clubbing, party, and all types of things. It's like, no, we just got hoop, and that's all we got. And,
Hoop, go home and go back to it.
right? That's it. Hoop and watch some more hoop. You mentioned Michael Porter Jr. I just want to give him some love real quick. He had 2 30 and 10 rebound games past 2 games, and then today he had 27 points and 12 rebounds. So I want to give the young buck some love who dealt with back injuries, just why he slid to 15th. Everybody's talking about why didn't my team take him? Why did my team take him? He had serious back injuries, and back injuries are nothing to play with. But he's the Nuggets let him sit for a year in rehab, and he's come back like the number one player in his class, like he was supposed to be. So,
I
I
think
mean,
people, I think we know now why teams didn't want to take him.
why? Why is that?
Nobody wants a controversial star.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
shots, all shots, but no vaccines.
right. His COVID stance is a little troubling.
He's an odd guy. I just think looking at it like if he's a 30-10 guy, maybe he'll pan out. Maybe have a 25-8 season. Just looking great, and just having him be a headliner. This is going to be a wild world for the NBA to handle. But regardless of the politics, like he has been hooping. Denver's been weird. They play that weird bowl huge lineup. They've been super injured but still winning, and they're going to be interesting. I think the West playoffs are going to be interesting, but really
Yeah,
focusing on those bottom teams. I mean, out of all of it, I'm super excited to see this play-in tournament because it's looking like it's bound to happen. We're about a few weeks away from playoffs starting, and
Yeah,
they're neck and neck basically. I'm excited to see this first time ever actual in-season tournament for the NBA. It's gonna be fantastic, I think.
yeah, I think so too. I mean, it depends on how the Grizzlies look now. I'm interested to see how they look tomorrow without JJJ. Because I figure they'll slide Brandon Clark into that lineup. He's been a super sub off the bench.
So you think they're
Uh,
gonna slide out of the race?
it's almost physically impossible for them, or mathematically impossible for them to slide out. If they can just get one win, they'll at least stay in the 9th seed if Portland jumps them for the playing tournament. The playing tournament looks like it's definitely going to happen because
Yeah, for
one
sure.
team will be in 4 games, but you want to be in the 8th seed because you only have to win one of those playing games. If you're
You
in
just
that
gotta win
9th
one.
seed, you got
Yeah.
to win both of. You got to win 2 games to move on. So you don't want to play 2 games and do that. You want that AC, get that one win, and get out.
Seeding always counts. As we can see right now, like seeding always counts. But hey, man, like while they're there and while the setup's there, at least let's get to see it once, you know?
Yeah, just because it's definitely not happening in the East. I can
Yeah.
can tell
Well,
you that.
it's crazy enough. The Wizards actually dropped record-wise below the Hornets to the
Yeah,
ninth East.
I, I
Like,
s- I saw people making a funk about that just to laugh,
there's
but
no funk to be made, but just a couple laughs to be had, I think.
yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, they're not there, so their record is frozen. So it's really not that fair, to be honest. I saw. It's like, I mean, it's really not much to say. I mean, if the Hornets were there and they were winning or something, then cool. But it's like they're not playing any games, so it's bound to happen. It would have been the Suns if they didn't go on a 4-game win streak. So to me, that's really just like, eh. It could be because I'm a fan. That's how I think, but
Yeah.
that's that's how I see it.
So, I mean, looking at the race, who would you say, like, I guess, like, who do you think realistically comes out on top? And then who do you think is, like, the best matchup for, obviously, the Lakers? I mean, pick any of the six if you think the Pelicans or Sacramento for that fantasy team to play them. Who do you think is the best matchup? And then who do you think is actually making it to that AC?
The best matchup is the Trailblazers. I mean, if we're
Yeah.
talking television value, games that would be closer, games that would actually be interesting.
Well, not realistic. I guess like realistic in the sense where realistically who's gonna win out of that bunch, and then who's the best matchup. So you're saying for both it's Portland?
I would think so, because the Grizzlies they would get swept 4 games easily. LeBron wouldn't even have to play that much for that to happen, even with the way the Lakers are looking. But if you got to play Portland, you have to adjust, especially with no Avery Bradley. You're leaving KCP, who's an okay defender, Danny Green, whose best defensive days are a little bit behind him, on CJ and Dame. But if you can handle those two, you can be all right. But Dame is a monster. I don't know if anybody can handle him. They do have some bigs they can throw at Anthony Davis and JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard. So it's not like they're going to be completely outsized. The only thing is there's nobody for LeBron. Trevor Ariza being opting out for the season is a
Yeah,
huge
that
blow for
hurts.
them. Because I mean, as good as Gary Trent Jr. has been, defensively and offensively, he can't do nothing with LeBron. Melo at his age can't do nothing with LeBron. I suppose they'll probably put Zach Collins on him and shade him with some Nurkic, but I don't know. I can see Dame winning a game or two off of the
Yeah,
Lakers just because he's great. I mean, he had 45 and 12 tonight. I mean, he's a great player, so I can see that happening. But as far as any other teams, the Suns, a good story, but they're not. They wouldn't challenge LeBron at all. I think the Blazers are the team that will make it, the only team that could give the Lakers a little bit of problems. What you thinking on that front?
I'm thinking I really bought in or have thoughts of buying into what the Suns got. I mean, I think Booker's phenomenal. And like we were texting earlier, just the whole Ayton argument on like how good he's really supposed to pan out. I'm really high on their ceiling, and I really enjoy their ball, and like I think they're really good. But I think that Portland honestly takes both those spots of A, being the best matchup, and B, being the best suited to handle these teams down there. I mean, before the break, Blazers maybe not because they were just so hospitalized by the amount of injuries they had. But now that they're back to somewhat of their full strength, like they're they're another tier above these bottom teams of young teams trying to like feed for that spot. And like we said, they have pivotal players in each position, and they have a superstar. James is definitely a superstar in the league today, so that's gonna supersede any kind of momentum these other teams got. CJ is always gonna have his buckets ready for him. Melo's got a good third role, and then they got bigs to run. So when it comes down to Zion or it comes to Ayton, they'll be handled by Nurk. Like he's a defensive anchor and he actually can ball on the offensive end. And then when it comes to playing the Lakers, like I think the same. They have bigs to throw. They got Collins. They got some offense. Like they got Dame, which they don't really have much to throw point guard defense for. And they have the playoff experience. So that's something I'm gonna touch up on after my statement about this. Like they just have experience, and Dame is a different level as you were just saying. And obviously there's no Bron stopper that exists today. So, I'm not saying they'll win the series, but I think a game or two will definitely be taken with the Blazers because they have that experience. So I know we were talking earlier about, that playoff experience really, because you view things like today where, Dallas is neck and neck with the Clippers and then they kind of just handle the game dominant down the stretch. And you see like that expert level of playoff experience going around, kind of like superseding the ratings that you had going through the season of offensive and defensive numbers. So, yeah, what are you thinking? Who do you think is going to get weeded out in these playoffs?
So you brought up the offensive and defensive rating. I was just listening to some things and just noting things from the regular season and the playoffs. And people always tell you the playoffs is a different beast, and it's true. You get, in the regular season, you got 82 games, so you're really not. You don't get a lot of practice time. You're not really focused on this opponent coming up. You're focused on, all right, let me do my stuff. We can, if you're playing a LeBron or an AD or Giannis or Harden, you might have a game plan for them specifically or something like that. But most nights you're just coming in trying to do what you do, focus. What you do is usually enough to carry you if you're a good team like the Bucks, who number one offensive and defensive rating. What they do, they got a lot of guys that can throw at you, 10, 11 guys where they can just play their style. They get up and down the court. They pack the paint. They allow you to just shoot threes and do whatever. And, Giannis is a beast, so he's able to maneuver, get to the hole, and score in many ways. So their offensive and defensive rating is nice, but once you get to the postseason where it's not, I'm focused on this game. I got 3 games in a week. It's no, I'm focused on this one opponent for however many games we playing. This is the only team I'm gonna see. This is the only team I care about at this point. So when it gets down to the nitty gritty, what you did in the regular season against teams like the Knicks or teams like the Hornets or the Wizards, that doesn't matter. You're not playing them anymore. So it's like, okay, so how did you do against these teams? Your offensive rating against the Lakers or something wasn't 115. You weren't out here scorching the Nets because you were actually playing real competition. So, when you're looking at these ratings and stuff, those are just like the averages of playing bums and great teams and all in between. So
Yeah,
when it
back
comes to
to
the
back, etc. Yeah.
yeah, so when it comes to the playoffs, it's like you can really throw all that stuff out the window. I mean, not fully. I mean, that's still your identity, but everybody knows that. What can you do at that point to adjust and change so that you're unstoppable in this scenario? I mean, and you see the Bucks, which is why I'm not a big believer in the Bucks, even though I do think they're going to the finals. Uh, Coach Budenholzer, he's a nice regular season coach. His stuff works. You've seen it in Atlanta. You've seen it this year and last year in Milwaukee. He can get you some wins, but once it comes to the playoffs, he struggles with adjustments. He
Yeah.
just wants to keep doing what he's doing, and that's what killed him last year against Toronto. Freddie VanVleet, he got hot, but he was getting hot off of open 3-pointers. It wasn't
Yeah.
like he was coming off the break hitting some Steph Curry shots. It was like, you gonna give it to me, I'm gonna take it. And you kind of saw that today in the Miami game. Duncan Robinson got off a lot of threes. Tyler Hero had a good game early because the threes are just wide open. Everybody's packing the paint, and Milwaukee's they're playing their defense. It's not like they're doing anything different, but the threes are just butt naked open. And the second half,
Yeah.
they kind of clamped down on that a little bit. But you can see where a team like that, where you have to make adjustments, and where they don't have a player who can get you a mid-range bucket, where they say that's the worst shot, but in the playoffs, that's the shot that makes you money. That's the shot that you most likely gonna give. So you need somebody to eat off those buckets.
Yeah.
So
That's what you're gonna get the most. So it's like, you need somebody to really take advantage of that. I think
so
this conversation is super geared towards like, those like kind of more schematic teams in the regular season that I kind of look for those offensive and defensive kind of just schemes to gel themselves through all these games. And you look at a team like Dallas, I think of Houston, I think of Miami, I think of Milwaukee, I think of Toronto. I even think of like Boston, and it's just where the defense is set up in a way where it's schemed to just kind of move around and just kind of generally like handle the whole floor, or the offense is just run and gun and kind of just made to build to constant shooting. And it's just when you play a 7-game series, it's so hard to run in each night with that strategy, because you run the back end of going extremely cold or letting a team catch extreme fire, and the home court advantage is completely taken away. So at this point,
right.
it really is the level of play. And if your defense is going to allow 33s a game, the first game might come cold turkey, but then if you're just going to allow that to happen game by game, you're going to end up like dying by what you think is working best. It's a gelling move. And like you said, there's certain coaches out here that live by their game plan rather than the flow of the game. I have stipulations with my coach, with Brad Stevens for the Celtics, not to be biased, but sometimes we make some bonehead moves, and I'm just like, it's all about the flow of the game rather than what your scheme works best for. Like sometimes you have to ride the hot hand or really like throw a wild card in, and you can't just rely on that scheme. So, I completely agree, and it's going to be a whole new, like the NBA says, hashtag a whole new game.
Right.
So see who really gets weeded out for these playoffs. And so, we have some clear-headed favorites that we were talking about. So I guess we could jump into that a bit more with how you think the style of play of these top seeds are looking like. And I guess we've talked Bucks, so we can jump in the Bucks a little more. Personally, I think they've looked a little sloppy. Like throughout the year, I've seen so many dominant games, especially in against great opponents. But the Boston game was sloppy. The Boston game should have not been close whatsoever. Refs on your side, bad star play from the other end, and immense amount of turnovers. And they just haven't really won a game that's really made you kind of scared of them almost,
Mm-hmm. I will say their comeback today was that might have been the start of them flipping the switch. They were down 20 and a
I know you
half.
were I know you're saying that, but like I said, no Jimmy Butler, no Goran Dragic, and then they're in their third game in 4 days. So it's like those legs are tired. You know what I'm saying? Like they
Absolutely.
basically are on E right after the second quarter. So if you're not mounting that comeback and winning that game, then then takes could be had. But catching up and winning the game is what they were supposed to do. So I don't give them any props for that. I don't see, the dominance from them like that. I don't see a dominant team in the East whatsoever.
They went from down 20 to winning the game by 20. So I thought that they did play a little well. And I don't think there's anybody in the East that can stop Giannis sans Nick Nurse. Because the way he throws some defenses together, he'll throw anything at you. It doesn't matter to him. The Raptors are a team. We talking about impressive teams. They've been very impressive. Kyle Lowry, who's been everywhere, rebounding, dirty fouling, flopping. You name it, he's done it
Whole
all.
9 yards.
Uh,
Like,
He does some things where it's like you probably shouldn't. He plays hard. No, don't want to talk bad about the guy, but he does some things on the court where I'm like, bro, are you playing basketball or are you just out here just to jump around? Like it's like, eh. So there's some things where I just like, all right, man, let's just hoop and let's not stop
So
all this acting. You're not getting a
yeah,
SAG card, like cut it out. But they're a legitimate team.
so let's quick fire down the East while we're at it. So we talked Milwaukee, talked Toronto, then you got Boston up next. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts. Jason Tatum, after that clunker of a performance he had the first game, he's played much better. The team is playing. Gordon Hayward looks much springier. He's got a nice little handle, I noticed, that I haven't seen before. They got a solid situation. They need Kemba to get healthy. But the thing that kills them, it's not their wings, it's not their guards, it's in the middle. I thought Robert Williams would be that guy this year. What's the second, third year? I thought by now he could be able to anchor a defense down low because he was so good in college, uh, just being a shot blocker and a presence around the rim. But he hasn't really developed that NBA frame yet to do that. Enes Kanter is good when he comes in. He's a great offensive rebounder. He carves space like nobody business. He's probably one of the top 5 back-to-basket players in the NBA right now. But he's a negative on defense, so you can't keep him out there. Daniel Theis is a guy that I really like. Was it German League MVP? He's a guy who can play and set some screens, but he's also not the biggest guy. So he can
Yeah,
get dominated
he's
by
undersized for sure.
teams on the inside. So that's one of the biggest weaknesses they have. And when you're playing a guy like Giannis, and you have wings that can play defense but aren't the best defensive wings, it gets kind of crazy. Jason Tatum plays some Ole defense sometimes. He'll let you run right by him. Jaylen Brown digs in. He digs in. He's a pretty great defender. I will give him that. But he has nothing for Giannis. He is not strong enough, and he's not big enough to handle Giannis on a game-to-game basis.
So
So,
playoff expectations.
Depending on who they match up with, it looks like most likely they're going to be playing the Sixers. I expect them to beat the Sixers because Ben Simmons' injury, which we haven't covered yet, but I'm sure we'll get to, his knee
Yeah,
dislocated a bit. Um, so I expect them to get past there, but second round where they're going to most likely play the Raptors, I don't
I'll
see
take
them
Toronto.
beating
Yeah.
them. Yeah, I don't see them beating the Raptors. That second round is where I see their journey ending.
Okay, so then up next, fourth spot is, if I'm not wrong, Miami Heat.
Yeah. Back to the Heat. If their jumpers are falling, you see today the
They
thing
got
with
shooters.
yeah, they do, but them legs get tired.
Yeah.
And you're in a condensed season. Sometimes you need somebody to get you a bucket inside. You still have Goran Dragic and you still have Jimmy Butler. So I expect them to beat the 5 seed, which is the Pacers, who are missing Sabonis. Oladipo's a little limited. T.J. Warren, started off hot. Today he had a solid game, but I don't see them producing that long term. They have one big and Miles Turner right now. They're playing Jakar Simpson at the 5, who, shout out to Jakar St. John's. Big East Rookie of the Year. You
Uh,
know,
mm.
but he's not. I mean, going up against Bam, I don't think he can do that. For the 10, 15 minutes a game, which they're gonna need him to do, or even longer, because Miles Turner just. I mean, he's a good shot blocker, but he prefers to hack. So, I can't figure that out for the life of me. So I can see the Heat second round, making some noise, possibly dark horse conference finals team. Because like I said, Milwaukee gives you threes, and they will gladly shoot the threes. And Duncan Robinson is a bucket, so we can see about that. How you feel about that 4-5? Would you?
I mean, I lean in terms of what? In terms of Miami, Indiana.
Yeah.
So why don't you wrap up your because what's next Sixers, and then I'll go down the line too. So then
Okay.
what do you take Sixers? Because then I don't think it's important to talk about 7 and 8. I mean, Magic just
No,
kind of
not at
fall
all.
off the map, and Nets don't have anybody recognized on the roster.
Exactly. So the Sixers. So
Embiid Sixers as of now.
right. I mean, there is nobody to stop Embiid. Period. I mean, they end up playing the Celtics. He can average about 40 and 20 a game, easy. But there's nobody else to counterbalance that. Who's the next guy up? With no Ben Simmons, you're looking at Al Horford, but Al Horford and Joel Embiid can't play together. It's been shown this year
So
they just don't work well together, and they don't
and
have another point guard. They have Shake Milton has been running the point, but he's not a point guard. They have Raul Neto, who is a solid backup guy, but he's not really like
he's not the one to make a
yeah,
difference in the game.
right. He's not getting you buckets. You need a bucket getter at that one these days, and he's not. He can produce some buckets, but he's not getting you any buckets. And it's just like after Joel, it's like for no Ben Simmons, what do you have? We don't know how long
We
Ben
talk
Simmons is going to be out. He
talk about the
made
Ben Simmons injury because you don't know with this one, and this one could come if it's rushed back, come causing a lot of pain down the line.
exactly. So there's an option on the table for a season-ending knee scope, but as of yet, that decision has not been made. They're trying to just give him some time off and then reevaluate. But the playoffs start the 17th. That's in about 11 days. So
Yep.
10 days actually. It's the 7th now. So
Technically, yep.
and they're not in a position where you can coast in the first round. That's not their thing. They're gonna have to play the Celtics, and they don't have the wing defenders. Glenn Robinson III, who's a good defender and a good shooter, he's been injured this whole restart. So who knows what he look like if and when he comes back. So who do you throw at him? I'm struggling to
Yeah.
think who else the Sixers have on the wing that they can throw at Jason Tatum because you can't put Al Horford on Jason Tatum. That's barbecue chicken.
So we saw how that went.
Right? You can't put Al Horford on Jaylen Brown. You might can put him on Gordon Hayward, but Gordon gets the ball, he going to the rack.
Yep.
You know
He's bringing out all the way out to the 3 line.
exactly. So I mean, I I'm not sure. I mean, Alec Burks, but he's not trying to defend anybody. I'm really trying to think who the Sixers have that can, like, if Ben is out, Joel has to average 40 and 20 for them to have a shot. That's the way I see it. And Shake Milton has to average 20. And Tobias Harris, that's who I was missing. So he be,
Oh yeah, I can't believe
yeah,
the second highest paid guy over there.
yeah, so he has to be the number 2 guy, and Al has to give you stuff off the bench. Al has to average at least 15 off the bench. Tobias has to give you at least 25 a game. And
I feel like even before this Ben thing, there just been like a big what if question, and the what if would have to be like, what if everybody played at max capacity? And it's just like it's a little far fetched when you really think about how many times you're saying like they gotta do more than they roll, and this guy gotta do more than a roll, and this guy gotta do more than a roll, you know?
exactly. See, if they had Ben Simmons, I would have given him a better shot.
Yeah, of course.
Just because he's a great defender, and you can put him on Tatum, and you got Tobias on Jalen, and you can kind of work some things around that. They still have Josh Richardson, who's a good defender, and you can throw him at Gordon Hayward, even though the lack of size is a thing. But you still have Joel behind you. But with no
Yeah.
Ben Simmons, that thing falls apart. There is no initiator. There's no creator.
Yep. And it's a real tough loss on the defensive end too, because
exactly.
Ben's had a monster year on that end.
Exactly. And like I said, with no Glenn Robinson the third, like who do they automatically insert into that lineup to be your 4, your 3, or whatever Ben Simmons was calling himself these days? Or the one that's like,
or they go back to the Al lineup, you know?
and to me, that's an unplayable playoff lineup.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I think you slide. I think you got to slide Tobias back to the 4. then play Shake, play one more guard. I don't even know. I wouldn't even know what would be the ideal Sixers lineup.
Like
It'd be game by game for sure, though.
exactly. Their roster construction
That playoff
is
lineup would change after they get cooked one game.
and I'm going through. I mean, it's going to be
It,
tough for them. They do have Thibault, so who's a great defender, Matisse Thibault.
Yeah.
So you could probably throw some things around him. He'd have to play the defensive series of his life, but he's a rookie, so I can't count on rookies.
Yeah, I mean, this ain't the 2000s either. You can't just like slap together defensive guys all around and then just like you need bucket getters who can get a bucket on their own, and they only got one at a high level and then a couple more that could possibly put up 12, 10, 15 maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the East? We can get you a quick rundown. So we'll start at the top.
I'll go bottom top since we're just on the Sixers already. And have a small conversation too, where it's like the whole Ben situation just changes everything with Ben, and finally coming back and saying, yeah, we're gonna play him at the 4, and then put guards and everybody else space the floor a little more, makes a tremendous difference. And like I was saying, he's had a great year on the defensive end, and having him be locked in that way defensively and really taking off that high level wing, it makes a world of a difference. But with him gone, already they had some issues with their lineup, and just him not being there and the injuries that they already have just gives them less power. And Joel's going to eat because they're most likely going to play the Celtics, and Joel's going to eat because the lack of bigs and that kind of weak interior defense that's going on right now. But when it comes to the perimeter and guys like Shake and Tobias and Josh and Thibault and everybody coming up the bench trying to create their shots off the wing, it's going to be near impossible with the Celtics and the way they play, switching on the perimeter. So it's almost like they're defeated before they walk through the door. You need a phenomenal performance from Joel, like spacing the floor fantastically and protecting everything on defensive end. And it's just a lot of what ifs to spark them up. So as much as they have a lot of upside with Ben being there, without him there, it's kind of almost guaranteed to count them out.
Right.
So that's a take there. And then moving up, you have Indiana, which is another like surprise story. And even like, last year and the year before, like them, the level that they play is interesting because they play hard and they play well. And then they continuously added kind of a couple shooters around, and the Brogdon signing was very, very key. And they've got good play out of the Holiday brothers, and TJ Warren obviously has been, a turnaround guy. And they just have Miles Turner, who has just been subpar his whole career. And then Oladipo, it's so weird how he's playing now when he really did not want to. And it's obvious that he's not in full like healthy form. And like we said, they play in the Heat, where the Heat have a lot of young guns and they have a lot of shooting. They have a versatile big who actually plays on both ends, very high key level. And Bam. And then they got a nice ISO guy in Jimmy, who has been proven to really be a closer, really been proven to be a scorer when need to be. And they have just a little edge up on what Indiana has. So it's kind of the take right there. And I would take, Miami to be strong in that second round and be an interesting matchup for the Bucks, So that's the take there. And then you move up, and then you obviously have Boston. And for anybody who's unaware, I'm a big Boston guy, and I can't chalk them up to win a chip right now, even though I love to joke around about it. But they're missing a lot, and the way they came back playing defense has been horrendous. But they have 3 versatile and very capable wings, which in the league today is something that's super valuable because when they're on point, it's hard to tell where to go, and it's hard to tell what to stop because they can each drive and they can each shoot. Then you have, a decent scoring point guard and Kemba. And then the big situation is just like we had a 3-headed snake in that regard as well, with playing small ball with Tice, who can move well defensively and, move well offensively as well. Like you were saying, he has talent. He has a background. We have Cantor, who, injected in the right minutes, in the right scenarios, he can be a net positive. Obviously, if you're down the hole and you're looking to kind of protect the paint, like obviously you're not slapping him out there, but if you're looking to sustain a little lead or take care of some mismatches, yeah, you throw him out there. And then Rob was supposed to be that rebounding, rim rolling, kind of rim protecting guy. And for his minutes he was, and then he, had the hip injury, had the leg injury, and then kind of waited where he had that back patiently. We were very patient with it, but once the start of the bubble came, he did not play. And it was very, very strange because there was a lot of moments where he could have, but that just wasn't gone to once the games came around, the actual seeding games. And then last night when they played the Nets, he got his 18 minutes and went 7 for 7, 4 for 4 from the line, put up 18 points, an amazing plus minus, and just did what he needed to do. So, like I was saying before, I think Brad needs to really work on his rotation. And if they can put themselves together, play high defense, which they did all year, they're one of the teams to be top 5 in both offense and defense. If they can play that high level defense of switching a lot and, really guarding their men and then protecting the paint, even undersized, then they really become as good as anyone. And obviously, they're not going to take it all the way to the top, but they become very, very, very competitive. And then if it's to go against the Raptors, that's a chess game. We're going to see that game tomorrow, Friday night. It's a chess match. It's 2 defensive schemes with 2 overachieving teams. And, the person who comes up on top is just whoever scores more. Obviously, not to be, cliche or say something stupid, but it just comes down to who's getting those buckets against those hard defense more. Right. And then to spit fire through, then that brings me to Toronto. And Toronto, like the same, they have a phenomenally coached team. They have a very disciplined defense. They have a very intense defense. They get up on you, and it's hard to go in the perimeter, and then they run a 2-big system, even though they run fast with Pascal and Mark. So they have a solid core, and then winning that chip really makes a difference in your blueprint, in your DNA, Like, they got that experience we were talking about. So they come out a little different. Kyle Lowry looks a little different this year. Freddie looks a little different. And Pascal took it up a notch too. So
absolutely.
I think they're interesting. I wouldn't say they're a contender. I wouldn't say they're
you wouldn't say they're a contender?
I wouldn't say they're a contender.
Yeah, they're a trendy pick to make the finals.
They're trendy, but then I mean, you can attribute a lot to last year's success to Kawhi. The shots he was hitting was insane. The level he was playing at was just absurd. He was supernova, And I mean, who's going to be that guy down the stretch when things are falling apart? Is it going to be Pascal, where he's going to the baseline, trying to spin move his way in, where you can see 1,000 miles away? Or is it Freddie or Kyle kind of chucking those open threes? Like, there's not that guy right now, I wouldn't even say it's Pascal predominantly, So that's where that's where I find the hesitance there, because you look at Toronto and you have Giannis, and Boston now has emerged Tatum, because before this season, most people were saying that Kemba is the solidified best player, and now it's guaranteed that it's not. Miami has Jimmy, then Indiana falls apart, and then the Sixers have not really a structured team outside of that. So then you go to the West, and the main guys have an insanely powerful number 2. LeBron's got AD, Kawhi's got PG, down the line, Harden's got Russ. Like, their number 2s are insanely powerful. So
man,
I think Toronto's lacking that star power, and that's a big difference in the playoffs. So that's my take on them. And like we said when we opened the conversation up, that Milwaukee to me looks a little sloppy. And I think Bud runs a great regular season, but just the same, that they can't survive giving up that many threes. You get in a series against Miami, obviously Giannis is going to eat, but when you leave they run a Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero lineup with Jimmy out there just facilitating, driving, kicking, and you run Bam out there. Like, there's a lot of drive kicks to the 3, and if they're wide open, those guys are going to get hot. Duncan Robinson's got the ratty, and so does Tyler Hero. I can't lie.
Right.
So I think that's a big speculation for me for them. So I mean, at the end of the day, I see personally on a better momentum. I see a Bucks Boston conference finals, and then I see a Bucks finals bid. Finally.
Okay, so you see Boston beating Toronto.
I see Boston beating Toronto, yeah, because of that star power thing. And I know Tatum had a clunker, but the last couple games have been fantastic to see. And one thing I got to chime in on, I don't know if you have the same take or not. I know we didn't talk about this before, but the officiating as of now, has been atrocious.
it,
Do you feel the same?
it seems like the referees missed their whistles. I would definitely say that. It's
They
like they
missed
were
them. they were home, still wearing it on their neck, ready.
right, just blowing it at everything. I mean,
The Miami Boston game. Did you watch that game?
no, I didn't catch that game.
Smart fouled out. Smart fouled out in the
Oh
third
no,
quarter.
that's the one we found out in what 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I actually did.
start of the third, and then it was a bloodbath of whistles in the third quarter. It was absurd how much they're going flying. And then you got grifting teams with Harden, Luka. You have AD, Giannis, these huge big men going for these drives. Like if the officiating is going to be so sensitive, the game is altered completely.
Yeah, well,
So,
I can see that. I can see that coming down because in the playoffs they cut up most of those whistles anyway. So
but like I feel like I don't know if it's maybe no, it's definitely just on a different level. So if they're at 300 right now and they tone it back to 200, like it's still going to be absurd. Like I
yeah,
think right now it's running off of what playoffs used to look like, but if this year they're going to start calling a lot more because I know that there's no fans swaying them and there is nothing but just the players yelling at them right now. That things might look a little different. So barring the officiating is decent and Boston kind of gets their shit together, I see them beating Toronto, and I see them, putting up a fight against Milwaukee. I think we're a good match for them.
yeah. See, I don't. As much as I don't like Toronto, I still can see them beating uh, Boston. I think their defense is enough. They got enough guys to throw at Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And then you still have the posting. They have Marc Gasol and they have Serge Ibaka. And Serge Ibaka's had the best year of his career. Like
Yeah,
he's played.
a lot of big.
He's played amazing. I mean, he can still shoot the ball. He got the mid range working. You really can't drive the paint on him. And then you have Marc Gasol, former defensive player of the year, came back looking like skinny Mark now. So he's a little bit
Yeah.
more agile and mobile. So if I had to call it, it would be a Milwaukee Toronto Eastern Conference Finals. And I could see Toronto even beat Milwaukee because
Oh, so you could talk yourself into Toronto going to the finals again.
I mean just off their defense alone,
Yeah.
they that's something that can translate. When your shot's not falling, what can you do? And
Yeah.
I can see Kyle Lowry getting to the rim, getting fouls. I mean, he just flops all over the place, so he's going to get some foul calls. Fred VanVleet gets his shot off. I don't know how, but he gets it off, and it can go down easily. And Milwaukee, I don't know. Can you win a title with Chris Middleton as your second best player? People have
No.
been saying how good he's been. He's on the cusp of a 50-40-90 season this year.
I saw someone tweet that they're like fake. They're like fake world stats. Like how is he 50-40-90 in every game you see? He's just trash.
Yeah, so the Middleton, he's a great shooter. He's a really good player, but I
You
don't know
saw
if I.
the Toronto LA game the other day, right?
Yeah, and you see how
Their
they
defense
completely
was wow.
suffocating.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made Anthony Davis not even want the ball. I mean, he was just passing it up like it was nothing.
Wow. Yeah. Their defense is on another level for sure. I
Suffocating.
hear it. I hear why that take is there, but I don't think I can convince myself that Toronto will go the whole way. I think they're great, but I don't know. I need to see it hold up in a 7-game series rather
My
than night by night.
my real dark horse would have been Philly if Ben Simmons was there. I think they could have made a little bit of noise, but with no Ben, they pretty much might as well pack it in.
Yeah, it's
So
unfortunate. I mean, as much as I hate on them, Ben has had a year, so they would have been interesting to watch, especially in this atmosphere, and especially with finally, like what 8 games left, and you're finally putting them at the 4, like finally spacing the 4 for him. The fact that they ran their tall lineup was Al and Tobias and Ben and JoJo and Josh Richards is just it's so
yeah,
garbage. Like it's crazy why they thought that would be okay.
Yeah, they just too clunky.
Yeah.
They were getting things together. So I don't know. Maybe see this leaves Brett Brown with some leeway, but he probably should be gone. I don't know.
Why they love him so much there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he stayed
I
through
hear
the
you.
process or whatever. He's supposed to be a good coach. He came from San Antonio, yada yada yada. But he hasn't really shown anything as to why he's the right coach or why he should stay. And I'm not in. I don't want people to lose their jobs or whatever. But
Yeah.
I can
I think
see.
last year. I think this is gonna be probably like the last year for him to put up a stinker. If it's not gelling after this, then clearly like there has to be some top down changes.
But you got to take COVID in effect too. They might not want to fire him and still have to pay him and pay a new coach. I don't know if you saw the story that came out about the Bulls and Jim Boylan, who's a coach who everyone has said he needs to go. He's not really a good coach. Needs to be fired. But the stories came out today that they probably won't fire him because of the money issues. They don't want to have to pay him and another coach while losing revenues due to COVID. So that's a real factor here too.
Yeah, the
Just
implications of the money lost this year overall has been unfortunate.
mhm.
So I mean that's take on the East. I won't go. We could save the whole West for next pod, but I mean we had written up just like exactly what this title means for whoever wins it, for the league, and obviously the implications we're just saying about COVID and just what this season has amounted to. Like, how do you feel about the whole? Does this title deserve an asterisk? Is this title going to be the best ever? Like, what's your thoughts on how this
Yeah.
championship's going to go?
I'm saying if you're gonna put an asterisk next to it, you gotta say this is probably the hardest championship to
Hardest one.
play. Yeah, to play 60 games, stop for 4 months. And it wasn't like it was set that you stop for 4 months. It was you stop and you may play again, you may not. So I don't know, stay ready kind of. So
Yeah.
it's one of those tough ones where it's like, okay, like Steven Adams, he went back to New Zealand. He was on his farm. Jokic was back in Serbia. Guys were gone. It was like the off season for them, and this was longer than a regular off season. So guys are doing this and that, and it's just like, oh no, you guys got to come back and get ready. You got 8 games to get ready for the playoffs, and the playoffs are here, and it feels real March Madnessy. Like anything can happen. You're
Oh
right
yeah,
here.
definitely.
You're in your region. You got to play. So I think this we'll look back on this, and this will be probably the most fun title. And
A thousand,
whoever,
1,000% like March Madness. Like today, it was like what 4 o'clock. I have 2 games already up in front of my screen. Games at like 1 o'clock. It is. Two things before I like just to chime in real quick. It's insane how fast this whole process is moving along in the playoffs. When you said 10 days, I almost was super confused on how quick that is. It's almost like a week out. And
right,
that's insane because it feels like we were just talking about what the bubble could be. And I feel like I just saw tweets about where it could go. And people were saying Vegas and, people were chiming for Disney. And, it just feels like it just rushed along. And then B, like the difference of play from what the scrimmages look like to what these seeding games look like is not even comparable because though they came in rough, like rough. Those first scrimmages looked very sloppy. And then once they became real deal, then it kind of just jumped into actual basketball.
right. It was. Yeah, this is going to be very meaningful. I think the team that comes out of this, they're not going to want to break up that team for a while. It's going to
Yeah,
be the bonds being built here, and some people have suggested maybe the next super team is being built here with so many guys here from different teams. But I don't think it'll be more of that. I think it's more of I'm with my team because, or why would I be with somebody else? I'm trying to beat you right now. Like an Olympic setting where we can all chill and hang out and kind of take it lightly. That's a different thing. Right now, it seems like everybody's going at each other's throats.
yeah.
I was watching. I forget which game I was watching earlier, I know it was actually the Suns game, and the commentators were marking that. Like, why don't a couple of Suns guys go to like the Nuggets game that was tonight as well and root for the Nuggets instead of who are playing the Trailblazers because they need to jump the Trailblazers. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
you go root for the Nuggets, be their biggest cheerleaders, and so you can help you get in. Things like that, and a lot of bonds being formed. And it's going to be in between the same team, so guys going to be fighting for each other. Things are going to get real interesting once we get to the playoffs because you see already now you get some dust ups, but I can see more of that happening as we get further into this thing because it's gonna be real. It's them versus us type of thing, and the
Yeah.
one goal is the Larry O'Brien Trophy. It's coming home with somebody,
Yep.
so I mean they gonna fight.
Yeah, it's another cool perspective. I didn't really like taking into consideration, and I've seen it a lot where it's like, you know, a whole lot different than being on the bus or being, at on an off day and watching another game versus being there on courtside watching a competition, whether good or bad or scouting or rooting against. Like it's a different level being there personally. I know a lot of the Blazers pull up to a lot of games together, and it just builds a bit different level of competition being in front of your opponents, like in real life distance. And I think that like yeah, there's definitely probably it's just like a huge campus lifestyle probably there. There's definitely like huge camaraderie being built, or just kind of some distance. Because imagine coming back and losing a game and your guys are not around, and they're a couple doors or a couple of feet away from you, and yet there's no contact being made and stuff. And I can see some distance being made, and there could definitely be some damage from this or some strength from this, like you're saying, some teams just like dialing in and just committing to one another. I think
Yeah,
that there's definitely. I think no matter what, it's a huge asterisk just because it's just so different. Like the season stopped and started again, and that's what we went back and forth on a different take of like our pod where like we were talking about what the stats mean and how they still count for the full season, even though this is just kind of like a sub season. I know it's the same year, but it's just a different element being here now, and I think it's been jumped the gun into, and it's moving fast along, and it's a few scrimmages, 8 games, and then boom, it's playoffs, a couple weeks span, and it's just a whole different atmosphere. I think it has nothing to knock on the competition or has nothing to devalue what the championship is, but I think it does have to come with an asterisk because it's not just of unfairness or whatever. Everybody's in the same conditions. Everybody's got the same chance. Everybody's got the same opportunity. There's no home court advantage. There's no, you just basically play who you played and how well you played at the beginning of the season. You didn't have many games left anyway, so I think the championship is going to be high level basketball, and I think it's going to mean a lot to the team that won too, because they're going to be in that bubble together, away from their families, away from their normal lives, their homes and stuff, and that's their ticket home, and they're going to look back and see the nights they spent with their teammates, grinding, preparing for those moments, and it's going to mean so much more. So I
all right,
definitely agree.
all right. So I'm excited to get into the playoffs.
For real.
So you have any things you're looking out for next week, next 4 seeding games? Anything to look out for? Anything you got on your radar?
Um, top of the subject will probably be the Toronto Boston game tomorrow, which unfortunately I can't even watch live. I'm hosting movie night for my girl and her niece,
Mm.
so probably gonna be Trolls World Tour versus watching the game, but I'm gonna definitely catch it right after that's all over with. But I think most people are on cruise control right now, heading into the playoffs. So not really interested. I'm just gonna watch basically all of the games the bottom West teams are gonna play and see how that pans out. But other than that, I feel like resting players are gonna come around, and a little sloppier games and a little less importance coming around is gonna be there. So I'm just geared towards the playoffs, man. I'm looking ahead.
Okay, I would say the
You?
same. Just checking out, seeing if Denver can get healthy. One, because if they've been
Oh,
missing Jamal Murray, Will Barton, and Gary Harris, and Mike Malone, who's the coach, is It's like even if it was the playoffs right now, they still wouldn't be playing. So I'm
Yeah, concerned.
interested because if they don't get healthy, they are prime for an upset in the first round. So
Yeah.
prime, even with Nikola Jokic. So I'm gonna see if they can gather some things together. If Portland can keep this hot streak going, they've got a little bit of a interesting schedule coming up. It's not a terribly difficult schedule. The next 4 games, we're looking at the Clippers, the Sixers, the Mavericks, and the Nets. So, mixed bag. You can come away winning all 4. You can lose all 4. So,
Hmm.
well, not the Nets game. That's one you should win. Maybe not even the Sixers. So you shouldn't lose that one either. And then Phoenix next 4 games, they got the Heat, Thunder, Sixers, and Mavericks. So their schedule looks a little bit lighter ish, maybe. So I'm just interested to see how those teams keep it going. Can they keep winning, or is it who's getting cut? Because it looks like the Pelicans, the Kings, the Spurs, they might not be long for the 8 and
Yeah.
9 seed playing games.
Yeah, I think the Pelicans are gone. So, same thoughts, man. We'll see how it pans out. That about wraps up my basketball take, man. I've watched my games for today. I've talked my hoops for today. I feel ready to take on my next day. Before we wrap up, I need your comments on Ghost Chapter 2.
It looked
Power.
interesting. It looked
You
interesting.
watched it?
I did. I saw the trailer. At
Are you
first,
continuing to watch, or are you giving up on the Power series?
I was gonna give up on the Power series after Power ended. I was like, I am done. I don't care what you got next. But this was pre-COVID, and there's a dearth of content. So I absolutely will be watching at least the first episode, first 2, just to see what it's about. Cause it looks interesting. I'll give it that. It look like they're back to telling a story, and not back to how can we keep Ghost and Angela's relationship alive. So
Exactly.
this
They have something
is
fresh,
yeah.
and I thought the trailer wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't bad at all, and I think it's interesting. And I don't know, like you said, like it's COVID, and there's a lot of free time nowadays. So and shout out to Mary J. Blige. I don't know, I guess she's an actor now. I just watched that show, Umbrella Academy on Netflix, and she's like an FBI agent, like a time traveling FBI agent, just like wildly
Okay.
random. And I guess she's gonna be starring in Power too. So I mean, shit. I'm kind of excited. It looked decent, like you were saying. It looked like they were sticking to a new storyline and kind of being fresh with it, rather than just kind of building some mush around what they thought was the best narrative they had for their old show. Because I was on the same boat where I was like, I'm not looking at any of these. And then the trailer came along, and I was like, wow, I'm looking out for it. And then this Jordan Peele show is coming out on HBO in a couple weeks too. I don't know if you've seen the trailers for that either. It should be pretty cool.
No, I didn't see that.
Called Lovecraft County. It's a horror show. You have to check it out.
Okay, I'll have to take a gander at that.
Any other rapping thoughts, man?
No, that's it for this episode. I feel like we've got to it. We informed the people. We let our hoop therapy out, and they can feel like they've had a good therapy session as well.
Yeah, for sure. It was fun, man. I'm glad this one is complete. This one's hitting the streets. I don't care. This is 50,000, so this one's hitting the streets no matter what.
Right. Before we wrap up, as always, remember, always the couch is always open for everyone. Just come sit back, enjoy, and hate the Celtics just like I do. That's all you need.
Yeah, we'll be back to do just that. All right, man.
All right.
All right, bro. I'm signing off.